Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I am here with fourth year math and stats student, Tyler Kristjansen. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I was definitely not a math guy. I do 3D art because I know a lot of math. There's things I can do in 3D art that like a normal 3D artist wouldn't be able to do. I also sculpt like on my computer.
Look at that. We can show the camera.
I got into this because I saw a YouTube video of some guy like sculpting random like Christmas characters in Blender. Visual Art Club. I was part of it since first year. I really enjoyed the community that had because everyone, first of all, it's like a chill club. Like it's so chill. The only point is to make art and hang out. There's no attendance. There's no membership fee. Homemade baked goods. Game dev. I like games a lot, but like they kind of scare me with the development side of things. It's like a lot harder than people think it is. You know the minions, right? There's like 4 shapes of minion. What they can do is they can just like reuse them over and over and over again and put them into like different situations and keep making movies out of it. Thanos looks very realistic, and the way they do that is by like calculating the individual rays of light bouncing off of his skin. A quote I saw very recently that had to do with like AI writing. They said, "Why would I want to read a book that no one wrote?" My hope is that people aren't really excited when they find that some piece of media has like not even been made by a person.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. Today I am here with fourth year math and stats student, Tyler Kristjansen. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I was going to Google it beforehand, but I was like, let me just ask Tyler, where is the origin of this last name, Kristjansen?
I believe it is Norwegian.
Okay.
But yeah, like my great grandfather on my dad's side I believe he was from Norway, or my grandfather is he's Norwegian, Danish, Canadian.
Yep.
So that's where it comes from.
Absolutely. But do you have the Norwegian pronunciation? You told me to say Kristjansen.
I'm a little bit far removed from that.
That's fair.
Yeah, I haven't spent any time in Norway at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's fair. Absolutely. So math and stats, is this a double major?
Yeah, double major.
That's an intense double major to have.
Yeah.
I have a stats minor, and I'm even finding that difficult.
Yeah.
The courses are dreadful.
To be perfectly honest, studying stats, I dislike.
Yeah.
But the practical uses of it are like a little bit more interesting.
Absolutely.
I enjoy my math degree a lot more, even though math is also like really hard. But like, I find it interesting and rewarding and like applicable to stuff in general. So yeah.
What made you go down that path? Because in high school, for me personally, big math guy, big stats guy. I loved all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I got here, I took Mat 157, kicked my ass, dropped down to Mat 137, kicked my ass again. Basically had to reroute. I was going to do a math program, but I ended up doing economics because obviously couldn't make the cut for what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
So for you, what was the trajectory? Because you are still in math, and that's a pretty intense program to be in.
In high school, it was like a liberal arts high school, and I was definitely not a math guy.
Yeah.
And I was interested in coding because I took a few coding courses in high school. And I thought, I'm going to go to UofT and be a computer science major with I also took AP stats. Yep. And I enjoyed that as well. So I was like, I'm going to do stats and CS. CS is crazy competitive here.
Absolutely.
And stats I didn't make the cut with 137, like math 137. Yeah. I think I got like a 60 or something.
Okay.
I didn't do that well.
You needed like a 63, right?
Yeah, I couldn't do stats specialist, but math you can just like go into without meeting any grade requirements. Yeah. So I said, I don't know what I would have done unless I didn't have a really good experience with linear algebra 1. Yeah. And then from there, I realized like, oh, math is actually like super cool. Like I do 3D art. Yep. And because I know a lot of math, there's things I can do in 3D art that like a normal 3D artist wouldn't be able to do.
Absolutely.
Like, just knowing how the whole art making process works. Like a painter who knows how the chemicals in the paint work would probably be able to make like very interesting shades of color to paint with if they know the chemistry behind it, and like maybe mixing a certain paint or something. Like today, Visual Art Club had an event with like painting, and like someone knew you could like mix the hues we were using with like lemon juice to change their color.
Interesting.
And so math helps me sort of be like that, but with 3D art.
Absolutely. I was checking your art account because it's pretty impressive stuff, and it's a good connection. I didn't even realize that.
I brought something. So
yeah.
I have a 3D printer, and I also sculpt like on my computer. So I did like a practice anatomy thing.
Yeah.
Yesterday during my club's office hour.
Yep.
And I printed it out today. So like,
look at that. We can show the camera.
Yeah.
Let's show it. So what is this? If you did describe,
it's a random guy I found on the internet.
There we go.
He was on this website. I think it's called like Pexev or Pexel or something. It's like a copyright-free image website, and my friend told me to like sculpt him as practice, so I did. Yeah.
That's crazy. So so walk me through that process. Then maybe we can just jump right into it.
Yeah.
When you say you sculpted him,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? Like,
So,
what do you mean for a complete beginner who has no idea what you're talking about?
Yeah. So there's this program I use called Blender.
Yep.
And it's a 3D software. There's lots of different 3D software, but Blender is free.
Okay.
Like the whole thing is free.
Yeah.
And what you do essentially is there's like dozens of things you can do in Blender. It's kind of like a jack of all trades. One of them is sculpting. And what you do essentially, it's sort of like, it's almost like a video game where you start with a sphere usually. You can start with different shapes as well. And you can move your viewer, you can like look around the sphere, and you can draw on the sphere. And when you draw, it like pushes out the sphere, pulls in the sphere.
Got it.
And using like various techniques and brushes, you can change the sphere shape into whatever you want. So what I did is I started from a sphere, and like I'd crease the lips, I'd pull out the nose, I'd push in the eyes, I'd like drag out the hair, and then like doing that while looking at the reference image.
Yep.
And that's how you sculpt in 3D. So there's like ZBrush, which is like a really expensive, fancy version that only does sculpting, but I like to use Blender. Blender does animation, texturing. What else does it do? Like it does 2D animation, sculpting, hard surface, like modeling, like CAD. So the other day I designed like a box that specifically holds ink brush nibs. So like dip pens have a metal piece on the end that like holds the ink while you draw, and it's like specifically for like putting them in, so you can like close the box and keep them safe. So,
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's sweet. So, okay. You're telling me from a plain sphere, you created that. So
yeah,
that's very cool. What I'm thinking of is I'm trying to guess how long it took you to go from beginner to now being able to do this kind of stuff. So for me, for example, like with these podcast episodes, there's a few things I need to Photoshop. Nothing like I wouldn't call it, it's not art. It's not like that, but it's more just like, digital work to kind of make covers for the episodes or to make clips or to make thumbnails and all this kind of thing. And when I started out, well, obviously I started practicing this when I was a kid. I had a YouTube channel when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
And I started practicing then. And obviously when you're a beginner and you have no experience, just the tools, like it's not just the tools, but it's like tricks you learn with the tools that like really show that you're advanced. Exactly.
Yeah.
So for you, coming from absolutely no experience with this program, how long did it take you to kind of figure out this stuff now that you're able to do a bunch of cool things? I'm thinking
like from then until now, or then until I could do this? Like,
well, then until now, what is this highlighting your overall capabilities, or can you do a lot more than what you just showed us?
I think this is kind of, I was able to do this level of stuff like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But the speed difference is a lot. Like, 3 years ago, my first digital bust, because like I'll explain more about like how I got here.
Yeah.
3 years ago, this would have taken me 10 days.
Oh, wow.
And that's like 2 or 3 hours work every day.
Yeah.
And I completed this whole thing in like 2 hours yesterday.
Unreal.
So like there's a big acceleration with practice. And the way, should I explain sort of like
Break it down.
how? Okay, yeah. So
We got plenty of time.
originally I got into this because I saw a YouTube video of some guy like doing a live stream where he was sculpting random like Christmas characters in Blender. And this is before Blender had like a ton of major updates. It looked horrible. Like the user interface was bad. And he was just like making like a silly looking elf with like a big grin and like big goofy Christmas presents and a gigantic scary Santa Claus thing. And I thought, that kind of looks fun and like something I could do. So I downloaded it on like my 2015 like 12-inch MacBook. It was like super small, not built for that at all.
Yeah.
And I used like my trackpad to like start doing that. Like I made little guys and like little fun scenes, and I thought it was silly and funny. I used to do Photoshop for fun as well.
Yeah.
Before it got super expensive. But I found it enjoyable. I also used to make like music with FL Studio. I still do that. So I feel like so that's something my dad has as well. I get a lot of hobbies like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like I got it from him, but Blender was sort of like a new hobby. And because I found it fun and interesting, like I practice, I have some really old things I made. Like I figured out how to like texture things, shade objects. And I thought it was just like a fun side thing. And it was maybe my last year of high school where I wanted to quit concert band.
Okay.
I used to play the trombone and I didn't like playing it anymore. So I signed up for ceramics because my high school required us to have an extracurricular thing.
Yeah.
And I asked my ceramics teacher, instead of doing bowls, like, can we like sculpt like a bust of a human head? And she was like, say no more. And she took me in her office and showed me like all her écorchés, which are like gigantic anatomy studies where like she like sculpted an entire human with like no skin and like half of the body had no muscle. And she's like, this is like what you do when you want to practice anatomy. We're just going to do the head. And she like guided me through it. And I practiced more seriously with Blender. And by the end of my last year of high school, I was able to like make a human face from reference given enough time. But I feel like what I really wanted to do after that point was to like make my own original stuff, because I felt like it wasn't really expressing myself by just like doing portraits of things and people. So I practiced more of that. And in first year, because of math 137 and how hard it was to not fail, I took a big hiatus from art. And then Visual Art Club, I was part of it since first year, but they had in-person events in second year that I went to, and I really enjoyed the community that had, because everyone, first of all, it's like a chill club. Like it's so chill. You just go, and the only point is to make art and hang out. There's no attendance. There's no membership fee.
Yeah.
There's like, I mean, back then there wasn't, but like there's like snacks that we sell, like homemade baked goods. And it's like a really enjoyable environment. And there was this one guy who was there, and he was drawing like really well. It was like a gesture drawing event. And I asked him how long he'd learned to draw, and he said 1 year. And I was like, no way. So then I started learning how to draw. And then gradually, when I wasn't improving that fast at drawing, I think I just remembered like I know how to sculpt and I should do that more. and I got more into it. And then there's a biannual means twice a year, right?
Yeah.
Biannual 3D art competition. I don't know. It's pretty popular, but I'm sure it only shows up in certain people's recommendation feeds on YouTube or anything. But like, it's where this guy named Clinton Jones, he's on, he used to be on Corridor Crew, if you've seen that. It's like a visual effects channel, and twice a year he gives everyone in the world like a template, and if you're a 3D artist and you want to compete in this challenge, you make your own original thing based on the template, and it's like an animation, and you get judged against everyone else in the challenge, which is usually like several thousand people, and the top 100 get to be featured in like a special montage video, and the top 5 get like actual prizes.
Is this the video? Sorry to cut you off. Is this the video I saw of the guy walking up the staircase with the fire?
That's one of them.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done it 3 times now.
Oh, so, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, keep telling me.
So just as I was sort of ramping up once more of doing more 3D art stuff, I saw the challenge and I was like, you know what? I'm going to like try this year, because I'd seen it before and I thought I didn't have time for it or things like that. And that I think is like the most I ever learned in 1 month, because it's only 1 month long. You get 1 month to make, usually it's around 5 seconds of animation that matches the rules of the game. So like the theme was boss fight, and you had to have the camera panning around like a big boss character and a little character who was like fighting them. And there was so many people participated in that one. Like I think it was like 2,600 people, and I didn't win.
No.
But like I learned so much from that. Like, because you have to learn everything. You have to learn animation, texturing, rigging, which is where you connect the bones to the characters, and like sculpting, environment design, concept art. Like you have to learn the whole pipeline from like idea to final product. Yeah. So that boosted it a lot. I also that's when I became an executive for the Visual Art Club. I became an event director. Yep. And I really enjoyed that as well. Let me see. I was doing 3D more consistently then. And the second challenge came around, and I started experimenting with like art styles and character creation and things like that, which is the stairs one. Yeah. The stairs one you're talking about. There we go. That one came out really well. I also didn't win. Okay. It's pretty hard to win. If it was up to random chance, you would still have like, I think like a 2% chance of winning, or something like that. And it is kind of like personal preference of the That's right. judge. That's right. So I didn't win, but I started like landing on an art style that wasn't using photorealism as much, but more so like inspired by things like animation, cartoons, anime, movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That's like referenced so often as an inspiration for like other movies as well, that, and I mean for a good reason. Yeah. So like trying to push what I could represent through that kind of medium, I think, is when I started doing that. And then there was the latest challenge, which I also didn't win, but someone else from UofT did win. There you go. And I helped him with feedback, and he used some of my feedback. So that's like huge. 1% credit. Yeah, 100%. You're on the team. But that's awesome. I'm trying to think of the applications for this stuff. You obviously gave the example of anatomy, and I think that's huge for, I guess, science in the medical field as well. But then also, I'm thinking also entertainment, movies, video games, these kinds of things. For you, if you want to take these skills beyond university years, where would you prefer to, what field would you prefer to be in? If there was like not any realistic challenges with this, I feel like it would be cool to be part of a small-ish in like animation studio, or like Game dev, I like games a lot, but like they kind of scare me with the development side of things.
How come? How come?
It's like a lot harder than people think it is. So
Yeah.
like I'm technically a part of a game development team for the game development club,
Nice.
but it's like the moment I joined, I realized it's like way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we need you to make, I think it was like, we need to make you need to make 60 animations for us. Like, just in order for us to like have something that you can like look at. Because like they had nothing besides like default animations that were downloaded off the internet.
Yeah.
And they wanted like, every time they wanted something new in the gameplay, like that requires a new animation. Yeah. They wanted like 2 different weapon wielding styles. It was like a Dark Souls like game that they're developing. They also want like concept art, later on like full character model design and things like that. Yeah. And it gets like exponentially more as even if you make a small change sometimes.
I hear you.
So that's why it scares me a little bit, but some of my favorite artists work in like game design, concept art stuff.
Absolutely.
I feel like with animation and like shading and texturing and stuff like that, like art direction wise, I feel like that's a little bit more freeing. And maybe I'm talking about it like a little bit too optimistically, because animators do get worked to the bone a lot. And when I said realistically at the beginning, like realistically, the art industry is not doing well right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because of AI?
Partially that, but also just like this sort of happened with 2D animators before all the studios mainly switched to 3D. Yeah. And my club had like guest artists come over last year to like talk. They were comic book artists for like Batman and Spider-Man comics.
That's awesome.
And one of them told us that like in the early 90s, or the 90s and the early 2000s, I think Disney was their 2D animators they were so good at 2D animation and their style was so recognizable that they were essentially like A-list actors. Like they could demand their salary. But the difference between them and A-list actors is people know the names of A-list actors, but people don't always look at the credits. Yeah. So what Disney realized they could do is if we switch to like 3D animation, where there's all these like 3D artists 3D artists that like can't demand their salary yet because it has barely existed. Like Pixar kind of popularized it and Disney bought Pixar. So like we can stop making 2D animation so we can stop losing money to these people. We can start like making 3D animation. But now there's a new problem where in 3D animation, it's incredibly easy to reuse assets. Like in 2D, you need to redraw characters if you need them in a new pose. In 3D, once you have a character, you can like pose them however you want. And
really?
Yeah.
How does that work? I understand the 2D side. For the 3D to pose them, is it because you create the character in the program?
It's like a puppet, kind of. Like, right. If you know, or if you've ever seen like stop motion, like behind the scenes, they have puppets for like all the characters. Yeah. And in 3D, it's like that, but even more flexible.
So yeah, I guess it's like when you look at claymation movies, they basically shift it a little bit. It's basically that on the computer.
Yes, exactly. Like the computer kind of helps with the process because it can mathematically interpolate between two important poses so that if there's like 24 frames per second of animation and you only need like 3 different poses and the character's moving like their arm just like like that. You can put a pose here, 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 and the computer smoothly interpolates between that. Yeah. So you save tons on animation costs because not everyone's animating every single frame. Right. Not every case you save money because it costs a lot to build from the ground up that 3D asset. Yeah. Because you need like I'm also a modern like it's not an official club, but I'm sort of one of the people in charge of the Blender club
Nice.
on campus. And
You're the man to be in charge of that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
At least from hearing you talk about it. So it's good.
so we had a sort of a collaboration project where we were designing a character from scratch. So we had someone do concept art. I did the sculpting of the concept art. Like then someone else did like the retopology, which is where you like change all the bad polygons on the character to like good polygons.
Yep.
It's the best way I can describe it. And then someone did like texturings. They painted the whole thing. Then someone else did like giving it like a skeleton so you could pose it. And now people are doing the animation. I'm also doing the animation. So it's a long process to get from like nothing to just like a full character. But once you have that character, you can use them and reuse them like as many times as you want. Like one thing, you know the minions, right?
Yep.
So the minions, there's like 4 shapes of minion or something. Like there's not that many variations of minions because they're just like a tic tac that's yellow with like eyes and a mouth and pants or overalls. And like what they can do is they can just like reuse them over and over and over again and put them into like different situations
100%.
and keep making movies out of it.
Absolutely.
So like that's I mean, I'm not a huge fan of, I think it's Illumination that does all the Minion movies and stuff, but like I understand why they're doing that. And that like the entertainment industry is kind of like always doing like a cost cutting strategy to try and like minimize costs, like reduce risk to make sure that like, oh, we can't have a flop. We can't try something new or else it might flop. Like, so it's a little bit tricky because of that right now, at least from what I've seen. And it's especially hard to, maybe the market might be a little oversaturated and also people are like overworked like crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. I guess as an animator, you would be able to see that kind of thing. Because for me, if I'm going in to watch Minions, I'm not thinking of, oh, that's the same animation.
That's the same character.
Exactly. And my girlfriend actually just showed me a video of this 2 days ago of Disney back then with the 2D animations, because once again, like this kind of thing was so laborious, they would use a lot of the same like transition movements, and it showed like here's this movie and here's this movie and they're doing like the same dance.
I know what you're talking
You've
about.
seen that video?
I believe I have, like in, I think it was like in Snow White and also Robin Hood or something. Two completely different movies, but like the dance animation they use for both of them is like rotoscoped over each other.
Exactly.
Rotoscoping is just you like trace over previous animation. So I mean, that's back then, I think they just didn't have nearly as much money as they do now. So like that might have been the constraint, but now they are very, very, I don't know why, but they're very scared of taking risks and like creating brand new franchises that are like completely differentiated from everything they've already made.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate stuff that's like one and done now. Like, when I was younger, like I used to, like, for example, Harry Potter, like there's a long series of movies that follow after each other. And I really liked that then, but I feel like now it's sort of just like trying to like do the same thing over and over again to sort of get the same reaction every single time. People get bored and then it's like, oh, people are bored now. Many people are bored now. Yeah. I wouldn't say everyone, because I'm not everyone, but like I hear you.
No, I hear you. So the jump from 2D to 3D was huge. What do you think is next for animation? Obviously there's no like obviously forward, you're not going to go 40 and spray people in the crowd when it's raining, but like do you see anything else coming? Because you're worried about, once again, they're getting all the animations. Disney has a stockpile of this asset set that you're talking about. Yeah. But is there any optimism for you? I feel like I do live in a little bit of a bubble when it comes to this, because I'm probably fed what I want to hear. Yeah. But I have seen a lot of interesting like solo animation stuff on YouTube specifically. And I feel like that could be a good alternative, because
one thing a lot of people are scared about is like studios using AI
Right.
to just like make full stuff.
Yeah.
But a quote I saw very recently that had to do with like AI writing, like writing books, is that I can't remember who said it. You can attribute this to like whoever, but they said, why would I want to read a book that no one wrote? Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of the same as like if I asked you to like make me an image before AI, if I asked you to like make me an image of a tiger,
Yeah.
and you just like looked up an image of a tiger and like sent it to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, like you gave me a tiger, but like it's just like an image of a tiger
Absolutely.
with no effort put in. Even if I read a novel and it was like the best novel ever, and you told me after I read it that it was AI, I'd be kind of disappointed because I'd be like, so there was like no human soul that like something went through their mind or something happened to them to like create this.
Yeah.
So my hope is that people aren't really like excited when they find that some piece of media has like not even been made by a person.
Yeah.
People can like, I mean, AI assistance, I feel like it's finding its place in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Like my professors are all telling me to like use ChatGPT now, which is kind of crazy.
That's interesting, actually. Yeah.
Like one of my professors told us to like use it to translate code from R to Python and stuff like that. And another professor said like we should use ChatGPT to like read over our papers for us so that it can like give us feedback. So it does have its place in many areas, but I feel like when it comes to creativity, it should really not be part of the making process. Like one thing that made me really appreciate my ability to be creative, I took ENT 200. It's like on Intro to Entrepreneurship.
I know it. I I haven't taken it, but I know the course.
And there was like a chapter on how to be creative, like, which I thought was crazy. I was like, why do they need to teach this to us?
Or like how do you even teach that?
Yeah, it was they're like step 1, brainstorming process. Step 2, like marinating process. This is not how it works. Yeah. Like, this is like how to be creative for non-creative people.
Yeah.
So, I think that, like, for example, one good use of AI in the creative process, there is, so in Blender, for example, there is ray tracing. Do you know ray tracing?
No.
So the computer, in order to get photorealistic lighting, like you might see in like a big budget movie, I'll just use like Avengers Endgame, for example, because like I feel like a lot of people have seen that one.
Yeah.
Thanos looks very realistic. And the way they do that is by like calculating the individual rays of light bouncing off of his skin. And to do that, you need to send like millions of rays of light. And that can take a really long time for a computer to process for just one still image of him. So thousands of still images takes forever.
Yes.
So
sorry. I did just hear the camera. That was an overheat. We're going to take 5 minutes. Back after a short break. Sorry to cut you off. You're telling me about the rays of...
The ray tracing.
The ray tracing. Okay, let's jump back into it.
Yeah, so just to maybe sum up what I was just talking about. So to make a character look very photorealistic, they have to shoot millions of digital light rays at them from all the light sources in the scene.
Right, and you're giving the example of Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos, for example. He's got like pores and like details on his skin and stuff. They have to calculate tons of detail by pointing millions of light rays at his face. And that takes a very long time for the computer to compute. And what AI has been used for is if you use too few light rays, it looks really like speckled because each pixel the color of it is calculated by like the average of the light rays that hit it. So you get like too few light rays makes it all speckly and like it has tons of noise. It looks very bad. It looks like there's like micro-sized fireflies or glitter sparkles in the scene.
Yeah.
And with AI, they've trained AI models to like take a scene with too few samples of light and guess what it would look like if it was way more samples, but like in a like less than a millisecond, like super short amount of time, less than a second.
Yeah.
So you can save hours upon hours of time by like forcing AI to like sort of approximate what it would look like if you had rendered it for like more hours. So that's one good use of AI as a tool to save time at the cost of like being inaccurate. Sometimes like there will be a corner of the room that's like dimly lit and the AI will like not realize it's a corner and there will just like be a blurry spot. But if you just add a few more samples, the AI will get it right. Yeah. So it doesn't create anything. It's building upon what you already have in your scene to like guess what it would look like with a little bit of guidance from the lighting. Yeah. So it's not creating anything. It's helping the artist create things. I think that's what's most important. Yeah. And I have seen people use AI for like reference images. I don't like doing that just because I feel like I want whatever comes out to be something that ran through my mind. Yeah. But some people use it for that to speed up like the concept art. Sometimes AI comes up with like weird things that like you wouldn't have thought of. So yeah, but what we were originally talking about was like the film industry. People are scared that they're going to utilize AI to create stuff. I already see like AI advertisements all the time, like made by AI. Sometimes you don't spot them because you try to like not look at ads because they're intrusive, but I see them like all the time. There's like street art that's AI like near my apartment. Yeah. Because the business shut down and then a new one bought that property and they put up like a big like I don't know what it is, but it's like a big wrap on the side of the building that's AI generated, and you can tell because like there's like a skeleton and like all of the joints are like melted together in like a non-realistic way, like no human would intentionally do. Right. And it just like it kind of like disappoints me because someone who is an actual artist could have been commissioned to do that, and it could have made something that's like very maybe culturally significant for the neighborhood. Exactly. Like I see there's multiple murals along Bloor Street and they're all made by people, and some of them have like graffiti over them. Some people just like have murals over top murals, and they all sort of tell a story of like the artist, like the neighborhood, things that like an AI wouldn't be able to know. Like it wouldn't be able to know like, oh, in the Bloor Annex, like it's like right next to Koreatown, and the Bloor Annex has like this random, I don't know, it's got like a certain vibe that like is matched by this street art. Absolutely. So like that's not something you can really train an AI on. So exactly. Yeah. I feel like that should be left in the hands of the humans who can create. 100%. And this is something I talked about in terms of social media. I said social media seems like a global culture now. Yeah. Which like everyone, whether you live in Toronto, whether you live in 3 hours north of here, whether you live in the States, it doesn't matter. People are watching the same viral stuff. Yeah. And like the culture doesn't have to be tied to your location anymore. There's a global culture of the internet, and AI is once again another great example. And I could think of it as being worse because now whatever the art style of perhaps a Toronto artist would be versus an artist in Tokyo is going to be erased if both of them are using AI. AI has no culture. AI is around the whole world. The graffiti of the skeleton in Toronto is now going to look the exact same as the one in Tokyo. Yeah, I think another thing that this is just a small annoyance that irks me a lot, but so many images have been generated with AI that when you look things up on Google, like sometimes up to half of the results are like AI generated. Wow. So if the AI is like approximating what this thing is looking at, if you're also trying to approximate, it's just going to be a worse copy. Yeah, so if you're trying to use references, but your references are AI, those are already approximations. It's like using someone else's drawing from reference as your own reference. Yeah. So like it's not always what you need. It also, there's so many like accounts that are run by AI now. Like the dead internet theory, if you've heard of it, is like that the theory is like everyone in the internet is not real. They're just a robot and they're interacting with you and like making you think everyone's on the internet.
Yeah.
But it's like becoming kind of too real.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
I see accounts on like Instagram and stuff that are like totally AI.
Yeah.
Or like totally bot accounts. They're just like farming likes and stuff like that.
100%.
So it's kind of worrisome in that regard. Also, like what you're saying about the internet being global culture.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of a tangent. Is it okay if we go on a tangent for
This
a
is
second?
what podcasts are, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So when I actually grew up in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So like I was born there and then I went to high school like in the US.
I would not have guessed that, by the way.
Yeah. but like I feel like the reason I sort of understand culture here to the degree that I can is because of the internet. Because at the same time people were watching like Nyan Cat in the US like I was in Saudi Arabia. And like same time like Vine was a thing. Like my friends were watching Vines like in Saudi Arabia. So like it definitely like it kind of didn't really like a lot of people wouldn't have guessed that I grew up there.
No.
But
why did you grow up there?
Oh, my dad was a school principal at the school in like the community I lived at. The community was like an oil based company, like community, and like the children of the engineers and the experts in like petroleum extraction and stuff like that. Like they had to go to school somewhere. So there was like an international school there. Yeah. And my dad was like the school principal. And I also went to that school.
So he was the school principal, but he was American.
He was American Canadian.
He's American Canadian.
Yeah.
And he went there for this company, for the oil company?
Yeah, he was looking for a teaching job. I believe he was looking for a teaching job in with my mom, like somewhere overseas, because they were living in San Francisco, I think. Okay. And I think the story he told me was like the line for Saudi Arabia was short. So wow. Because like I think they were thinking like somewhere in the Caribbean, but the lines for the job fair were like really long.
That's wild.
And they thought they were gonna stay there for like 3 years, but they stayed there for like 18.
Unreal.
Yeah, long
so
time.
He literally, just because he wanted to work like as in teaching, he wanted to work in education.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable, to move from the US to Saudi Arabia.
He was already working like I think as a high school or middle school teacher for biology, and then he moved to Saudi Arabia, and I had a good childhood like growing up there. It was sort of like an international community there. Yeah. Like so like UofT, it kind of reminds me of that. Like it's really diverse. Absolutely. And it was diverse where I was growing up too. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm not that good with cold weather.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah. How did we're going to get back to 3D art and AI and this kind of thing, but how did the Saudis seek your dad for the position?
They didn't really like seek him.
Or like were they like trying to hire someone in the US?
They were doing like back then there was like a lot of sectors that were still like there are quite a few of like business areas that are primarily filled by like people from other countries. Yeah. So like one example that still is like a big thing is construction. Right. Like manual labor is still primarily done by like people from other countries. Right. And it's less so now because many like I think they found like large oil reserves some early part of the like last century, but because they found them then, like nobody in Saudi Arabia was really like trained for that. Yeah. So they had lots of like immigrant workers come who did know how to work with like oil extraction. Got it. And then they built like local universities, so that
You had to
people
have the
from Saudi
infrastructure.
Arabia, could like learn how to be engineers.
Got it.
And now like more of it is like run by like citizens of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So like it was just like the transitory period where they needed people from other countries, but then because of that they need like healthcare from other countries, and they need teachers from other countries, and they need security and internet technology people from other countries to get everything running. And then gradually, I believe, I don't know, I haven't checked this in like a while, and I've mostly heard it through word of mouth, but like it's being filled in more and more by like Saudi citizens now. Got it.
Very interesting. Have you seen the line that they're building? Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it, and I don't know what's gonna happen with it.
It looks crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know very many details about it. I just have seen the photos, and I'm like, if this is real, this is gonna be insane.
Yeah. I think with like mostly with like the UAE and Qatar and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, like in those countries, also like Kuwait to some extent, like some things are like super advanced while everything else is like really outdated.
Right.
Like I had landline internet until 2021.
Okay.
So like but at the same time, what was happening at the same time? Like I think the whole country was like trying to like invest into like renewable energy, and like there's like futuristic stuff happening in research.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but the dental equipment in like the dentist office that I was at, like when I in like 2000 was like from the 80s, but like when I go to the dentist in the 2010s, it's like from now.
Yeah.
So it's like huge advancements at random points.
Yeah.
Like it was an interesting sort of thing. Like we had those like yellow orange street lamps from like a long time ago that were like really power and efficient for a long time, and then suddenly one day like all the lights got swapped to like LED in just like a week. It was like wild. Yeah, it's things get done, but like they get done randomly.
Out of nowhere. Out of the blue. That's interesting. Well, maybe we can get back onto that subject later on the episode, but let's circle back, full circle. Where are we talking? We were talking about AI.
Yeah. And like the current difficulty with like the creative industries.
Yeah. The thing is, here's why I think I'm on your side. I think it's worrisome. I think that the future is a little bit scary when you look into that kind of stuff, because I don't know if the human spirit will win, because history has always been about the most efficient product, the most efficient services end up on top. If you look at the food industry, was the main example that was coming to my mind. It's always not necessarily about what is the highest quality, but what can be provided at the highest, or what can be provided. It's the discrepancy between quality and cost for the quality you're getting. So we think about food. To get bread, you would years and years and years ago, you would go to a bakery and you'd buy fresh bread, and it would cost you this much. And obviously it takes time to drive there and all this kind of thing. Yeah. And you go back and you eat the bread with your family, and it's healthy and it's good for you. It's very simple ingredients. It's bread. Now the bread comes from who knows where. A bunch of preservatives in it. It's cheaper. Like accounting for inflation and all this kind of thing. It's cheaper perhaps because and they're able to make way more of it. It's at the grocery store. Perhaps the grocery store is closer to your house than the bakery might have been, but it's not as good for you as the baker's bread. Same with burgers, McDonald's. Once again, cheaper to make, cheaper to buy for the consumer. Obviously, it's less expensive than a real burger because it's higher quality, but it's going to cost you more. People are always about the most efficient and the best discrepancy in terms of the price it's going to cost them and the value they're going to get from it. So in terms of AI, when we talk about AI art, AI music, for example, I listened to some AI Juice World 1950s version. You know, I don't know if you've seen this.
I haven't seen that specific one, but I do know what you're talking about with the AI music.
Yeah. And this is the thing. It's like, obviously people prefer music made by real people, but if they can get AI music easier, or if it can be made at a faster rate, is it going to just take over, even though it's less quality?
Yeah. I feel like there will be people who just won't care if their music comes from an AI or comes from a person. But there will be, I think music is one of those things like that is especially tied to our culture. Like people, I don't know how this is manifested on like from your perspective, but people have been like going, like doing everything they can to like see Taylor Swift as of late. Cause like, I think she's on a huge tour.
Yeah.
So like, it's not just her music, it's like her.
Yeah.
That's like part of the brand. That's part of the music. And, for me, like I don't know. I think most people in the world, like they want something that was like made by someone music wise. Like, and I feel like when I've tried to like trick people sometimes as like a joke, like, oh, like, do you like this song, or like, do you like this picture? And then I'm like, oh, it's AI. And they're like, what? Like they feel betrayed.
Yeah.
So I think people won't overall, like some people will just like listen to AI parodies of music because like they think it's fun. But like I think overall, like people will not switch over to AI music. Like I think a lot of people see a very thin sliver of like the music world because they like a specific thing. Like I definitely like a thin sliver of the music world because like I think I heard or something like Maroon 5 was doing some huge tour, and I was like, I completely forgot about Maroon 5. Like, they're so popular.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
They're insanely popular, and
100%.
I never listened to them ever.
Yeah.
So like, it's like there are fans for things, and maybe I don't know enough about the music industry, and I don't know if I can comment on it, but my guess is that it won't go away. Yeah. The real people making music. So
hopefully,
hopefully,
fingers
I don't want to
crossed.
listen to a robot making songs that are like supposed to make me happy or something. Like
no, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's, like I hope so. I hope so, because you would think, I bet the people back then said, I'm not going to eat bread that's going to make me slower, or it's going to lower my testosterone, blah, blah, blah. But it's
I don't think they knew that back then though.
Right.
Like, I think if people back then were given the new bread, which usually is more palatable than like default bread and is like super cheap, and you told them like all the downsides we would discover like decades later, I think they would not want to try it.
That's a good point, actually, because I guess as the innovation comes in the early stages, you can't possibly, or maybe you can, but people generally don't consider the effects that could happen decades down the line. So we're talking about this now. I hope some people, AI, because of how fast it can advance, I think more people are aware of like, okay, this could be dangerous, because ChatGPT came on the scene right away. It felt like there was no real ramp up or phase one of ChatGPT. As soon as it came, everyone's like, no way this is real. This is unbelievable. And I remember when it happened, I think it was the end of my second year. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, when it came out, and right away, UofT was on it as if saying like, yeah, we have a software that can basically tell if ChatGPT wrote your paper. It's like, no, you don't. Yeah. Absolutely not. Even now, I don't think that type of thing exists.
Yeah, I think it ultimately, it's like super subtle, because ChatGPT it like follows grammatical rules too well. Yeah. So you can tell if like there's, for example, if it does like a double hyphen, I think that's something that is grammatically correct, but no UofT student uses double hyphens unless they're like, I don't know, they've been doing that for a long time. Like, if one of their papers has double hyphens everywhere, but like none of their other papers do, like it's suspicious because hardly anyone I know uses them in their writing.
What do you think's the future of academia with AI?
That's hard to say.
Because I feel like professors or just the university in general hasn't up until this point adjusted well enough for the technology. I mean, it's hard to. It's like how do you change the?
I will tell you one thing, which is at U of T, despite the best efforts of the university, there's like rampant technical cheating. Like, in the math program, there's like problem sets. A lot of classes have problem sets, and like I noticed very distinctly in my combinatorics class that, so I was like doing the problem sets and I was going to classes and I was getting like 70s and 80s, but the class average was for every single one was like 95%.
Yeah.
And I was like, how are they doing this? Like, how are they like doing so well on all of these? Like, am I just like stupid? But then the midterm came and the class average was like 60% and I got like a 90. And I was like, okay, so like maybe they like aren't that good at combinatorics. Like maybe they're like helping each other a little bit. And the rules were like, you cannot help each other if you're not in the same group.
Yeah.
But like people totally are doing that. Like I have like witnessed that happening.
Sorry, you can't help each other if you're not in the same room? Is that
in the same group?
In the same group.
Yeah, there's like groups of 3 or something. I think that's what it was. So like people totally do that. Like I used to be in like a study group and people that were in like the same class would totally help each other on problems like that.
Yeah.
And I think what I've seen in my classes is a huge shift away from projects. Like a lot of my classes no longer have problem sets or projects because ChatGPT is good enough that it can get you close to the right answer just by like entering a prompt. Quizzes are getting harder online.
Yeah.
So my astronomy 101 class, like I'm taking that as a bird course
right
now. And the quizzes are like trying to trick ChatGPT. Like,
interesting.
At least that's my theory. Like they're like indirect questions that require like abstract thinking, whereas previous years would be like, why do comets have tails? And it's like, oh, because the sun heats them up and like the surface boils away and becomes the tail. But like it's like now it's like comet's tail, like select all that are true that are not true about comet's tails, and it's like comet's tails contain silicon dioxide always. And like ChatGPT is like not that good at like thinking about the negative of a negative of an abstract question. It gets it wrong, and then they lower the average of people who are solely relying on ChatGPT.
Right.
So people are trying different things. Almost every single class I'm taking right now has like no problem sets right now.
Very interesting.
Or I have an essay and like a project, and that's all I have for take home.
Yeah.
And everything else is tests.
Yeah.
Like, which I feel like is maybe a little bit more fair, but also like stats and math professors sometimes can be like a little bit of sadism is like when you love inflicting pain, right?
Yeah.
They're sadists.
Yeah.
Like the class average for my 2 stat machine learning courses were, I think it's like 49 and 45 or something percent, which is crazy. Like, and then the professor's like, if you're not in the bottom 10% of the class, like you will not fail. I was like, what?
Unreal.
Like if we get nothing right on the final, we can pass.
Yeah.
If we know nothing about this course, we can pass. Like that's kind of.
So is he talking about just curving everyone up?
He's going to curve everyone up, depending on how hard we try, which is crazy. Like collectively, we need to like try, but not too hard. Or else some people will get like, they'll be like the bottom 10%. So 100%. We need to like, I don't know. It's crazy. But then another one of my courses is like really hard. That's like the point of the course. It's like problem solving seminar or something. And the professor told us like, because the course is so hard, if we get like one question right on the final, it'll be worth a lot. But like if we get 2, it's like each one is worth a little less.
Yeah.
So like you get 100% by like completing the whole thing, but you pass by just completing like 2 questions.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's
Interesting.
It's a tricky world. Every professor has their own method.
Yeah. Very cool. Very interesting. Okay, so now let's go back into art, but I want to talk specifically, about the Visual Art Club.
Yeah.
When did you join that? When did the club start? You're president now. When did you become president? Give me all the details there.
So I believe the club started just before COVID. We spawned from the Scarborough Art Club.
Okay.
There's also a Mississauga art club that's unrelated to us, but we have ties.
Okay.
So they're not estranged to us. But the founder graduated I think 2 years ago.
Yep.
So the club is not that old, but I joined in my first year, and it was during COVID, so there was no in-person events.
Yep.
It was just a Discord server.
Yep.
And people shared their art. It was not that active, and once in-person events started, it became a little more active. The events were mainly like where things were happening. We have every week is like a different event.
Yeah.
Different theme, and we have some like reoccurring events. Like we have a Secret Santa where like everyone requests a drawing, and it's randomly given to someone else in the room. Nice. And then like everyone receives and gives their drawings to each other at the end. It's super fun. Yeah. It's got like cookies and stuff. Like it's holiday themed. We had a Halloween sort of event this year that was pretty fun. I didn't get to go because I had midterms. Yeah. We have like a gallery event at the end of the year where like we print out everyone's work so people can submit their art to the gallery thing, and we put it all up on the walls of the room we have the event in, and it's sort of like you can go around and observe everyone's art, have food. We had vendors last year for like arts, like keychains and prints and stuff like that, stickers. We have guest artist workshops, so we invite guest artists to come. Last year we had like a paper cutting artist, 2 comic book artists. Who else did we have? We had a pixel artist, so only pixel art, but his art is actually on display like around Toronto. Interesting. Street art.
For the paper cutting artist, how do you get renowned? How do you get known as a paper cutting artist? How did you come across this person?
I don't know. I wasn't the president. I don't know how we found them. Yeah. But paper cutting is actually like an artisanal good. Like, interesting. Like you can ask someone for like instead of a painting, like a whole scene that's all like cut out in paper, like with extreme precision. And it is very impressive. Yeah, I will say, like, I did learn a lot from that event.
That's wild.
But we collaborate with other clubs as well. We've done collaborations with the Origami Club, Anime Club. The Tea Club was today. Nice. We collaborated. We painted with tea because tea can be used as dye.
Wow.
So we did watercolor with the tea. Who else did we collaborate with? We collaborated with the Computer Graphics Club. Yep. I taught everyone how to sculpt in Blender.
Awesome.
But we do all sorts of events like that. I'm forgetting like 2 other collaborations we did. But in my second year, I was more active. And then third year, I applied to be event director, and I got it.
Nice.
And I came up with a bunch of events, and I helped other people like organize different events. Thankfully, like a lot of the people in our exec team are very devoted to the club and the idea of it. So we work really effectively. Like one of my jobs is working at Student Life as like a club's one of my tasks is to work at the club's help desk. Yeah. And a lot of clubs have like internal drama or like difficulty with like organization, getting set up. And thankfully our club is like low drama.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
And then this year I ran an election campaign to become president of the club. And I didn't run like by myself. Like I had someone who was running as well, and there was like an election, and I feel like it was pretty close because like she put up a good campaign, and we also have like we had a vice presidential campaign, and we have a exec selection process to like decide who should be which exec role, and I think we did a good job picking this year.
That's huge.
Yeah. But I feel like it's taught me a lot about leadership, obviously, because I am leading and I wasn't leading before.
100%.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you about that. You also mentioned, since you did a campaign, that's also something maybe I'll ask you about. But first, what's different between being a member of the club and now being the leader of the club? Like, what qualities have you gained? Because I'd have to think, I don't know if you've had any other leadership experience prior to that, but in this unique endeavor, there's got to be some things where you're like, I didn't know how to do it before, and now you learn.
Nothing. You know? I've not done this important of a leadership role before.
Okay.
I have done like smaller ones. Like I was a club president in high school. And that was sort of like a self-run thing. Like not so many people were depending on me.
Got it.
This year, but I have learned like how to sort of use, like, if you're the president of something, people take you seriously when you talk about that thing, and it's sort of like automatic. Like I realized slowly that like I was kind of the person people would sometimes go to for like the last say on things, like, oh, should we do this? And then I'd be like, oh, like I have to say yes or no because I'm the president. Like I don't have to be asking that or like thinking in my head like, oh, I think that might be a good idea. Like I have to say like, let's do that or like, let's not do that. So, and I do leave it up. I leave it up to my execs a lot because I trust their judgment. But a lot of the time I am sort of the one who has to like take charge on certain ideas and ask different people to like do certain tasks and things like that. And I think this year I've gotten a lot of opportunities to like really lead. Like that's so vague, but when I was taking that entrepreneurship class that I talked about before, the one where they tried to teach us how to be creative, everything was about like money, and I didn't really vibe with that much because money's like not like that interesting to me. But like, and that course didn't really teach me anything useful, but something I did realize is that you can kind of apply entrepreneurial ideas to like things that are not money. Like you can quantify it without using money as the quantifier. So I think success of the club is quantified through like how much people are enjoying it, how many people are joining, how many people are staying, how much art people are making at any one point, how much people are talking on like the Discord server at events. And I really wanted to like make that like be the best it could possibly be. So like this year, we snuck into the University of Toronto Student Union Club Carnival and got kicked out at the end. But we got like 120 members just from that.
Wow.
And we grew a lot this year. The Discord server, me and a few other execs like revitalized it so it's more user friendly and easy to interact with. And like we added like a question of the day that people can suggest questions to. So like people get to share like what they're interested in. People get to like hear what others think about that things. People love engaging with that stuff. I can say I like engaging with it too. But like quantifiably, like everything has been doing quite well. And we've got like way higher event turnout consistently this year. Even during like peak midterm season, we're getting like a completely jam-packed room with not enough seats. Like if you go to the Visual Art Club Instagram, there's like several photos recently of the room where people are in it, and like it is so crowded. Like it's a classroom in Oise that's supposed to have like a lot of people in it, but it's too full. And
that's incredible.
And it's so satisfying to see that. We have an office in the 21/6 clubhouse. And we have office hours once a week. And like the room is pretty small. But people still come and like crowd the room. Like even though the max capacity should probably be like 4 people in the room. We got like 8 people jammed into the room.
That's
people
great.
like grab chairs from other rooms and like find spots just to like sit and doodle and chat.
So what do you think has been the driver for that? Do you think it's like people just love art? Do you think it's the culture that you guys make there? What is like the input? Like what do you do to get that output?
I think really maybe experimenting with, I think it's a few things. Experimenting with what people might like. We've had a few flops, I will admit, like
For events
and for like initiatives. Like last year we tried to boost engagement by like creating a contest where you could design like emojis for the server, like custom ones. Nobody participated in it. Like we had to get execs to participate to like make it seem like people were participating. And what else have we done that's kind of flopped? Sometimes we just like forget supplies at events and like don't fully plan things out. Like we have hiccups sometimes, but we experiment with things. Like we did not have very much money at the beginning of this year because we didn't get very much funding last year. So we started doing bake sales, and we've been earning like a lot of money from bake sales because people see the new art supplies we're able to buy. People see that like now there is a whole new set of paint in the office. People see that like now tea is like free at some events. Like we're like giving people tea, and then we like remind them that like it's because they bought a cookie at the last event. We were able to afford like a whole new set of color pencils or something. Like, so I think seeing that, because we don't have membership fees, and some clubs do, and they earn a lot of money from that. But we try to, for those who would be dissuaded from joining from a membership fee, we try to like keep it at a minimum, because I think that is a very important thing in our club. And then there's also just like automatic things that draw people to our club that we can't really control. Like UofT is a crazy stressful environment. It's like go all the time. And the chance to turn your brain off for 3 hours and just like chat about anything you want and make art using some creative method that has all the supplies provided to you for free is like so healing after a horrible week.
No, I 100%. I agree. And that's different things for different people. Art 100%. Hearing you talk about it is amazing, because it's I honestly like I'm terrible at art. I can't draw.
That's okay. I used to be bad at art too.
There you go. And I talked to actually 2 days ago, or maybe even yesterday. Yesterday I talked to a guy, and he was telling me about his art journey as well. He has an art account that he does. His style is very unique. It's a little bit different than yours. I don't know how I describe his style. Maybe I can show you his account, but
sure.
And he was saying the same thing. Like for me, the way I get my mind off of things is hockey. A lot of people is sports. That's how they go a bad midterm. Once they go on the field or on the ice, they distract themselves. Some people it's art. It's, you create something out of nothing. And I think that's amazing. I think once again, the initiative with that club is huge. If people want to join, where do they have to go?
Well, on our Instagram, there's like a link tree with like a membership form. If you just follow the Instagram, you can see updates for events. And then let me see. Our Discord server is also like, if you use Discord, it's nice to be there because people talk about like all sorts of stuff. Like I think yesterday people were like talking about a very specific video game that like 3 of them were really interested in, and they all became friends over it.
There you go.
Like, I mean, I'm also guilty of that. But like, another time, like one of the questions of the day was like, what's your favorite show? And then someone was like, oh, I wish more people would watch this. And then someone was like, I watched that. So like, it's an enjoyable experience. Come to any event you see advertised. You don't even need, as long as you're a current UofT student. If you're not, you do need to get someone to vouch for you at the event. But if you're a current UofT student, then you just show up and start making art, sit down somewhere, start chatting with the people at your table.
There you go.
Yeah, it's super casual and fun.
Awesome. That's UofT_VAC on Instagram.
I believe that is it.
Okay. We'll put it up on the screen for people that want to check it out. If you have any final thoughts, it's been an amazing conversation. We can wrap things up if you have anything you want to share.
Let me think. Join the club. Follow my art account. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Fantastic. Tyler, thank you very much for doing this. That is Tyler Kristjansen, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. That's VoV Podcast. We will see you next Sunday. You can follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vic, and have a good Sunday. Merry Sunday. Peace out.